Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading cosmic horror related stories every single day. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. I move dirt for a living, that's all. I drive excavators and bulldozers, clear land for archaeologists to sift through, and try not to think too hard about what they find. I've worked a dozen sites over the years, uncovered bones and pottery and tools that people used thousands of years ago. Watched scientists get excited over fragments of things I couldn't identify, pieces of history that meant nothing to me, but everything to them. None of it prepared me for what we found at Kessler Hodge. None of it prepared me to learn how many times humanity has risen and fallen, or what keeps knocking us down. My name is Clement Brayley. I've been operating heavy equipment for 18 years, the last 7 of them working contracts with archaeological excavations. It pays better than regular construction, and it takes me to interesting places. I've dug in jungles and deserts and frozen tundra. I've seen things come out of the ground that made grown scientists weep with joy. I thought I'd seen everything. I was wrong. The Kessler Hodge site was in a remote desert region, about 100 miles from the nearest town worth mentioning. I'd been working there for 6 weeks when everything changed. The dig had started as a routine excavation looking for pre-Columbian settlements. The university funding the project expected to find pottery, maybe some burial sites, nothing too exciting. My job was the same as always. Run the heavy equipment that strips away the upper layers of soil before the archaeologists move in with their brushes and picks and tiny shovels. I lived in a trailer on site with the other equipment operators. We worked from dawn until the heat got unbearable, took a break through the worst of the afternoon, then worked again until dark. The lead archaeologist was a woman named Dr. Faye Kettrick. She was in her 50s, had spent her whole career studying ancient civilizations, and she treated my equipment like it was a scalpel instead of a backhoe. She'd stand at the edge of whatever section I was clearing, watching every bucket of dirt I moved, ready to call a halt the second something significant appeared. I respected that. Some archaeologists treat equipment operators like we're just there to make their jobs easier. Dr. Kettrick understood that what I did required skill, that I could feel the difference between empty soil and soil that was hiding something. She listened when I told her to slow down, and she trusted my instincts when I said we were about to hit something. We'd developed a good working relationship. By the time I broke through into the void, I was clearing a new section on the eastern edge of the site. The soil had been unremarkable for days, just layers of sand and sediment with nothing interesting in them. I was running on autopilot, thinking about what I was going to eat for dinner when my bucket punched through into empty space. The excavator lurched. I pulled back immediately, years of training kicking in before my conscious mind caught up. You don't keep digging when you hit a void. Voids mean caves, tombs, structures. Voids mean things that could collapse if you're not careful. I climbed down from the cab and walked to the edge of the hole I'd made. It was about 4 feet across, ragged at the edges, where the soil had crumbled. I couldn't see the bottom. I radioed Dr. Kettrick. 10 minutes later, she was standing beside me, staring into the darkness with an expression I couldn't read. "This isn't on any of our surveys, she said quietly. "There shouldn't be anything here." She called a halt to all machine work. The archaeologists moved in with their lights and ropes and cameras. I stood back and watched them descend into the hole, their voices getting smaller as they went deeper. When Dr. Kettrick came back up an hour later, her face was pale. "Clement," she said, "I need you to see something." What they found in that void changed everything. It wasn't a burial site. It wasn't a natural cave. It was a structure, a room of some kind, collapsed and buried under millions of tons of sediment, but unmistakably built by human hands. The architecture was unfamiliar. The materials were wrong for the region, wrong for any region I'd ever worked in. And the artifacts scattered across the floor looked like nothing I'd ever seen in any museum or textbook. But that wasn't the impossible part. The impossible part was the depth. We were over 60 feet below the surface. The geological layers we'd cut through to get here were old, very old. Dr. Kettrick's initial estimates put this structure at over 100,000 years old. Modern humans have only existed for about 300,000 years. Civilization as we know it, cities and agriculture and writing, is less than 10,000 years old. A structure this sophisticated at this depth shouldn't exist. But it did. And it wasn't alone. Over the next 2 weeks, we went deeper. Beneath the first layer of impossible ruins, we found another layer. Different architecture, different materials, different style entirely, but also unmistakably human. This layer was older still, 200,000 years, maybe more. The dating methods we had on site weren't precise enough to say for certain, but the geological context was clear. This wasn't just old. This was ancient beyond anything the history books acknowledge. And beneath that layer, we found another, and another, and another. Each one represented a distinct civilization. Each one showed signs of sophisticated development, technology, culture, and each one ended abruptly. Not gradually declining the way civilizations are supposed to fall, not fading over centuries of slow collapse, cut off, terminated. Like someone had flipped a switch. I talked to Harlan Jessup about it one night. Harlan was the other equipment operator on site, had been doing this work for 20 years. He was a quiet man, kept to himself mostly. But we'd become friends over the weeks we'd spent living in adjacent trailers. "You've been doing this a long time," I said. "You ever seen anything like this before?" Harlan was quiet for a while. He took a long drink from his beer and stared out at the desert. Every now and then, he finally said, "Someone digs deep enough to find the wrong thing. Happened to me twice before, once in South America, once in Asia. Both times, the findings got buried. Reports got lost. Scientists got reassigned or retired early." "What do you mean buried?" "I mean, someone made them go away. Someone who didn't want people asking questions." He looked at me. "You seem like a smart guy, Clement. Smart enough to keep your head down. Don't ask too many questions about what's in those holes. Don't get too curious about what it means. Just do your job and collect your paycheck and try to forget what you saw. That's it. Just pretend we didn't find evidence that human civilization is thousands of times older than anyone thinks." Harlan shook his head slowly. "It's not just that it's older. It's why it ended. Every time." He finished his beer and stood up. "Some things we're not supposed to find, and the people who find them don't always end up okay." He went back to his trailer. I sat alone in the dark for a long time, thinking about what he'd said. Dr. Kettrick was changing. She'd always been intense, focused, driven. That was normal for someone at her level. But over the past week, she'd become something else, obsessed. She'd stopped sleeping, as far as I could tell, stopped eating regular meals. She spent every daylight hour in the dig, and half the night hours too, climbing down into those buried ruins with her lights and her cameras and her desperate need to understand. She'd found something in the deepest layer we'd excavated, something she wouldn't show anyone else. I'd see her sitting alone at night, holding something small in her hands, muttering words I couldn't understand. I should have left then. Should have taken Harlan's advice and walked away while I still could. But I couldn't. I needed to know what she'd found. I needed to understand what those layers of dead civilizations meant. One night, about 3 weeks into the excavation, Dr. Kettrick called me to her tent. She looked terrible, gaunt and hollow-eyed, her hands trembling slightly as she spread papers across her folding table. But there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not madness exactly, something worse. Understanding. "I've been decoding the records," she said. Records? In the deepest layer, there was a kind of archive, information storage, preserved somehow across hundreds of thousands of years. I don't know how they did it. The technology is beyond anything we have, but the information is intact. She looked up at me. "It's a history, Clement. A history of humanity. The real history. Not the few thousand years we know about. All of it. Millions of years. Hundreds of civilizations rising and falling over and over again." I sat down heavily in the camp chair across from her. Hundreds? At least, maybe more. The records only cover a fraction of the total span, but the pattern is clear. She pulled out a diagram she'd drawn, showing layer after layer of human development, each one ending in a sharp line. Every time a civilization reaches a certain point, it ends. Not gradually, not from internal collapse. It's ended, deliberately, by something. Something. Dr. Kettrick's hands were shaking now. The records described them, the beings responsible for the resets. They've been here since before humanity existed, since before life on Earth began. Their function is to manage intelligent species, to cultivate them, and to prune them when necessary. Prune them. When a civilization gets too advanced, too aware, too close to discovering certain truths, she met my eyes. They reset it, wipe the slate clean, knock us back to the Stone Age, and let us start over. Why? I don't know. The records don't explain their reasoning. Maybe it's beyond our comprehension. Maybe there's something we're not supposed to discover, some threshold we're not supposed to cross. She laughed bitterly. Or maybe they're just gardeners, and we're just plants. You don't explain to a rosebush why you're cutting it back. You just do it because that's your function. I thought about all those layers in the dig, all those dead civilizations, all that progress and achievement wiped away like it never happened. What does it mean for us? I asked. For our civilization? Dr. Kettrick was quiet for a long moment. The records describe the threshold, she said. The markers that trigger a reset. Population density reaching a certain level. Technology advancing to certain capabilities. And awareness. Understanding of the true nature of reality. discovery of certain truths. Have we crossed those thresholds? Population and technology? Yes, decades ago probably. She paused. Awareness is the only one left, and by finding these records, by understanding what they contain, I may have just crossed that line. Strange things started happening after that conversation. Equipment malfunctioned in ways that couldn't be explained. Engines that had run perfectly for years suddenly died. Computers glitched and lost data. Radios picked up nothing but static. Workers reported feeling watched, even when alone in the open desert. Several of them had nightmares, always the same nightmare, standing before something vast and incomprehensible, being evaluated, being measured, being found wanting. 3 members of the team quit without explanation. They packed their things in the middle of the night and drove away, leaving behind most of their belongings. None of them answered calls or emails afterward. It was like they decided to erase themselves from the project and from our memories. Harlan came to my trailer one evening as the sun was setting. "I'm leaving," he said, "tonight. And if you're smart, you'll come with me." "What's going on?" They know we found something. The things in the records, whatever they are. They're watching now, deciding. Deciding what? Harlan's face was grim. Whether this dig is a problem, whether we've crossed the line, whether it's time to clean up the mess. You're talking like they're real. Like Dr. Kettrick's records aren't just the ravings of some ancient civilization that believed in gods and monsters. Every civilization believes in gods and monsters, Clement. You ever wonder why? You ever wonder if maybe they all saw the same thing? He shook his head. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen things I can't explain. Things that made me believe there's more going on than we understand. And I've learned when to walk away. He held out his hand. "Come with me. Leave now tonight, and don't look back." I should have gone with him, but I couldn't. I needed to know more. I needed to understand what was really happening. I shook his hand and told him to be safe. He drove away into the desert night. I never saw him again. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up trying and walked out into the desert. The dig site was quiet, all the equipment still, all the tents dark. The stars overhead were brilliant, more stars than you ever see in a city, a river of light flowing across the sky. I walked to the edge of the main excavation and looked down into the darkness, and I saw something looking back. Not clearly, never clearly, but a shape in the shadows at the bottom of the dig, something vast and patient and utterly still. I felt its attention like a weight on my chest, like being pinned by something that could crush me without effort, without even noticing, but chose not to, chose to wait, chose to watch. It wasn't hostile. That was the worst part. There was no malice in what I felt, no anger, no cruelty, just assessment, evaluation, measurement, the way you'd look at a weed and decide whether it needed pulling, the way a farmer might look at a field and decide it was time to harvest, without emotion, without personal investment, just a function being performed. I don't know how long I stood there, minutes, hours. Time didn't seem to work right while that thing was watching me. Then it was gone. Or maybe it had never been there at all. Maybe I'd imagined it, my mind cracking under the strain of everything I'd learned. But I don't think so. I think I saw one of them, one of the beings that reset civilizations, the gardeners, the farmers, the wardens of humanity's endless cycle of growth and harvest. And I think it saw me too. Dr. Kettrick had decoded more of the records. She found me the next morning, her eyes wild, her hands clutching a sheaf of papers covered in diagrams and notes. "I understand now," she said. "The threshold markers, the criteria for a reset. I've mapped them against our current civilization." "What did you find?" "We've crossed them, all of them. Population density exceeded the threshold decades ago. Technological capability exceeded it even before that." She thrust the papers at me. "An awareness, Clement. The final marker. It's not just about finding the records. It's about the spread of understanding, about too many minds knowing the truth." "How many is too many?" "I don't know exactly, but the record suggests that civilizations are monitored constantly. The beings, the wardens, they watch for signs of threshold crossing, and when enough minds understand enough truth, they act." She grabbed my arm. "Don't you see? It's not just this dig. It's everything. The internet, global communication, knowledge spreading faster than ever before in human history. Secrets that used to stay buried are being uncovered every day. People are asking questions. People are looking up at the stars and wondering what's out there." Her grip tightened. "We're at the threshold, Clement. We've been approaching it for decades. And this dig, these records, what I've discovered, it might be the final piece. The thing that tips us over the edge." "What happens then?" Dr. Kettrick's eyes were full of something I couldn't name. Despair, maybe, or acceptance. "The harvest," she whispered. "It comes. It always comes. That's the one constant across millions of years of human history. We rise, we grow, we reach, and then something cuts us back down." I found her in the dig site at dawn the next morning. She was standing at the very bottom of the excavation, in the deepest layer we'd uncovered, motionless as a statue. I climbed down carefully, calling her name, but she didn't respond. When I reached her, she turned to look at me. Her eyes were empty, vacant, like something had been taken out of her, or maybe like something had been shown to her that human minds weren't meant to see. "They showed me," she whispered. Her voice was flat, without inflection. "All of it. Every reset. Every civilization. Millions of years of rising and falling. I watched them all, lived through them all, felt what it was like to be cut down over and over and over." She smiled. It wasn't a sane expression. "We're nothing, Clement. We're less than nothing. We think we're special. We think our civilization matters. We think our art and our science and our love and our dreams mean something." She laughed. "We're just crops, that's all. Crops in a field. And harvest time is coming." She walked past me, toward the rope ladder leading up. I grabbed her arm. "Where are you going?" She looked at me with those empty eyes. "Away. Anywhere. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters now." She pulled free of my grip. "Don't try to stop what's coming, Clement. You can't. Nobody can. The harvest always comes. The only choice is whether to see it coming or to be surprised when the blade falls." She climbed the ladder and walked away into the desert. I never saw her again. The dig was shut down 2 days later. Government people showed up. People in suits who didn't identify themselves, who spoke to each other in murmurs and looked at the excavation with expressions I couldn't read. They confiscated everything. The records, the artifacts, Dr. Kettrick's notes, all the data and samples and photographs we'd collected over weeks of work. They interviewed each of us separately, asked what we'd seen, what we understood, what we planned to do with the information. I lied, told them I was just an equipment operator, told them I didn't understand any of the scientific stuff, told them I'd never talked to Dr. Kettrick about her findings. I don't know if they believed me. But they let me go, paid me for my time, made me sign papers promising never to discuss the excavation, and sent me on my way. I went back to my regular life, took another contract, different site, different part of the world, tried to forget what I'd learned. But I can't. I see the signs everywhere now, the markers of a civilization at its peak. Population straining the planet's resources, technology advancing faster than our wisdom can keep pace with, information spreading at speeds that would have been impossible just decades ago, secrets being uncovered, questions being asked, people looking up at the stars and wondering what's out there. We're at the threshold. Maybe we've already crossed it, and somewhere the wardens are watching, evaluating, measuring, deciding whether it's time to harvest again. I'm writing this because I want someone to know. I understand that it won't change anything. The reset will come whether people believe me or not. The wardens don't care about our opinions or our feelings or our desperate desire to survive. They have a function. They've been performing it for millions of years. Our protests mean nothing to them. But I want there to be a record. I want someone somewhere to understand what we really are, what we've always been. We think our civilization is special, unique, the pinnacle of human achievement. We think the pyramids and the moon landing and the internet and everything else we've built matters somehow, that it will last. It won't. It never does. We're just the latest crop in a field that's been cultivated since before we existed. Crops exist to be harvested. That's their purpose. That's their function. That's our function. I don't know exactly when the reset will come. I don't know what form it will take. Maybe a disease, maybe a war, maybe something we can't even imagine. Something the wardens have used 100 times before on 100 civilizations that thought they were special too. But it will come. I've seen the evidence buried under millions of years of dirt, layer after layer of human achievement, all of it cut short, all of it forgotten, all of it replaced by the next cycle of growth and harvest. We are not the first human civilization. We won't be the last. But we will end. That's the truth, buried under all those layers of soil. That's what we discovered at Kessler Hodge, the terrible, simple truth that humanity has been living and dying and living again for longer than we can comprehend. And something has been farming us the whole time. I don't know who will read this. Maybe no one. Maybe the wardens will find it and erase it along with everything else when the harvest comes. But maybe someone will survive. A few always do. Enough to start over. Enough to begin the cycle again. Maybe they'll find this account in the rubble of our world. Maybe they'll understand what it means. Or maybe they'll make the same mistakes we did. Build the same civilization. Reach the same threshold. Attract the same attention. And be harvested in their turn. That's the horror of it. Not that we're going to die. that we're going to be forgotten, that everything we built and dreamed and loved will be erased, and in 100,000 years, some new civilization will dig down through the layers and find our bones and wonder what happened to us, and they won't understand. Not until they cross the threshold themselves, not until the wardens come for them too. This document was discovered on a personal computer belonging to an equipment operator who worked briefly on an archaeological excavation that was shut down by federal authorities. The operator's current whereabouts are unknown. The excavation site has been filled in and the land purchased by a private corporation. Access is restricted. Dr. Faye Kettrick, referenced in the document, has been reported as a missing person. Her case remains open. 3 other workers from the site have also been reported missing in the months since the excavation ended. Geological surveys of the region have been classified. No official statement has been made regarding the nature of the findings. In unrelated news, global population has reached a new record high. Technological advancement continues to accelerate. Information spreads faster than ever before. And somewhere, something very old and very patient is watching, measuring, deciding. The harvest always comes. It's only a matter of time.